Next lesson will be the, actually it's a project for the valve, and it's bottom-up design, but we do one of the components, the key, in the top-down design. So make sure you open up your project pages from the website, and the only thing that's really given to you here is the valve. There's a couple of pictures of the valve. Everything else is going to be downloaded. So that's all that's really given, is to show you the parts that are going to be used for it. We're going to create a sub-assembly and then an assembly. So I really don't need this. I'm going to shut this off. All right, I set the working directory to my valve assembly, but in reality what you're going to do is make sure your directory is where you need it to be for your working directory. And we're going to go into our CAD resources site. So I have this set up on my bookmarks here, but CAD-resources, that's the resource for all the book projects and lessons and lectures. I'm going to click on the book, and on the right hand side we have the 3 projects. We did the gear already. We're going to do the valve. And basically, if you're using the academic version, that's up here. And if you're using the commercial version, maybe make sure you click down here. I've got the commercial version where I'm recording. I'm going to open this up. And it's going to be the valve assembly, and it's a zip file. And here's my components. I'm just going to move this over here for now, over to the side. And I'm going to close my browser window. So basically I want to start off with a brand new assembly. And follow the steps in the book, whatever it's asking me to do. And I have turned on my tree filters already. Oops, I didn't. I'm sorry. I was working on it. Every time you start a new part, object, drawing, assembly, you're going to have to turn everything on. So make sure you do that. I also previously turned on my datum tags just so that I could see them. So my first component here is going to be the arm, and that's the main part of the subassembly. So I call this one actually valve, and I guess I could rename this. And I'm going to call it sub, just so we know it's different than the primary assembly. All right. So my first component is going to be the arm. I'm not going to click on assemble. I'm just going to drag and drop it from the WinZip. And I'm going to put that at the default position. You can see it was created and has transparency on. That's helpful. And I can take a look at my datums here. Some of these have been turned off. And let's go and put this into the isometric. Looks a little bit easier to visualize when you do that. All right, so that's my first component. That's the arm. And actually, I made a mistake here. I really don't want it to be the arm. So I'm going to go back to my original, and I'm going to bring in my shaft. That's what I want to be as the primary. Default. So you can see how easy it is to go back and forth. Now, one of the things that happened here is when I backed up, my option here for isometric also changed. There we go. Okay, so there's my first component for the subassembly. The next one is the arm. And I'm going to click on the large hole in the arm, and then on the shaft, large portion of the shaft. Next one, I'm going to select the end face here. I can move this if I wish. I'm going to click on the end face here. And if I put my cursor over here and I click on my right mouse button, it'll filter through eventually to the surface I want to select. And it went into coincident. I want to have a distance. As far as how far I want to have that distance, I'm just going to eyeball it, and I'm going to go to my view. Actually, I can do it right here. And let's go to the front view and see what it looks like. And let's also select hidden line. And basically what I want to do is I want to have it a little bit over farther. Component placement. And again, I'm just going to eyeball it. I want it to be just about in the middle of the keyway here. All right, go back to my view. I'm going to go back to my shading with edges. And I'm going to add one more constraint here. I got two in there right now, but I want to index this correctly. I want this to be aligned with this, which is the surface under here. I can get it by clicking. So let's select this one here first. Right mouse button, new constraint. Click the key seat in the shaft, and then right mouse button until it highlights this one. And it's at normal right now. Let's put it at coincident, and then flip it so that it lines up. You can see all of them here. Coincident, distance away, and then the coincident with these two aligned. Middle mouse button finish. Go back into my standard orientation. And another item here is we're going to need to put in the actual valve. And I'm going to click on this face and this face and change that. See if I can do it here. Nope. And change that to be coincident instead. And then I'm going to click on, as the second set, A1 here and the A4 over here. Right mouse button, new constraint, and I'm going to pick the axes. Instead of the shaft, instead of the holes, I pick the axes. Either way is fine. Now, if yours goes in opposite of this, let's go over here and click on this one. No, this one. So let's say flipped. No, it still came out okay. I was wondering if it flipped to the other side. Let's see. No, let's delete this. Flip. There. If it comes out like that, make sure you flip it, because that's more like coincident of the facing, the faces facing the surface is facing in the same direction. You want them to face each other. So we have all of our components here for the subassembly. So let's start the next object, which is an assembly. And this one is the full assembly. And the first component here is going to be the housing. I'm not going to change this back to the trimetric because I already have the component. And default constraint. And there's my housing. So that's the first component. Let's check our tree filters. They're all on. So next thing we want to do is we want to put on our second component. In this case, it's actually going to be the valve subassembly that we just created. And I'm going to click Assembly, in Session, and my subassembly. Oh, didn't come up. I think I hit the wrong one. There it is. All right. And again, you can move this into position if you wish. You can rotate it if you want to. Don't really have to do all this. It'll automatically reposition itself as you pick the constraints. So basically we've got the shaft here, and we've got the hole that it's going to go in. And again, you can drag this out if you want to see it a little bit better. And the second constraint is going to be the bottom face here, the bearing face, and it's going to go into the counterbore on the top of the housing, like so. But we want to add one more, even though this one says it's fully constrained because the assumptions are on. We're going to add another one. And what we want to add is one to allow us to index it or rotate the arm and the valve subassembly. So I'm going to select the assembly datum in this direction and assembly datum in the other direction. And you can see the angle came up. Doesn't make any difference what the angle is. And check. Now what that allows me to do is that if I click on the subassembly and click edit, somewhere, there it is, way on the bottom here, this angle is going to come up. And I could change the angle of the valve. Without that extra constraint, I wouldn't be able to do it. All right. Now, next one I'm going to put in is I'm going to put in the plate. It goes in the top here. Called the cover, I guess. And again, I'll move it over. And I think we'll turn off all the datum planes. Makes it easier to see. You can always turn off that 3D dragger if you wish. I'm going to click the face here and this face. And it says normal, but we want that to be coincident. And then normally I start off with the hole, but this time I didn't. I'm going to click the hole and the shaft here. And I have one more I've got to do to be able to line it up. You can see it pretty intelligent. It kind of knows where to go. But I'll use new constraint and I'll click on one of these right mouse button to get the other one. If you hold down, you can see pick from list. You've got a whole list of stuff that you can choose from. And you see you can select it from there. Fully constrained. So we have most of our components. If you want, you can go to the standard library, pull out a screw and stick it in here if you want to do a little bit more work. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to do some design in the assembly mode. So I'm going to go to Create on my Model tab ribbon up there. And this is going to be the key. Now, I know you wouldn't make a key. You'd buy one, open it up, stick it on your assembly. Or you take a standard one from Pro Library. It's called Pro Library. It's also called Creo Library, but I notice they haven't changed it on all of the website pages. So we're going to locate the default datums, align coordinate system to coordinate system right now. Click OK. We're going to select the default coordinate system here. I better turn back on my datum planes. Everything becomes transparent because we're working in a new active part right now. And you can see you have your datum planes here. But well, we want to be a little bit careful because we're going to create the key and we want to use the datum plane that goes down the middle here. So maybe we'll use this assembly one. But we are creating a part. So we're showing part dashboard options. So I'm going to click on Extrude, Define Internal Sketch. I'm going to select this. Actually, you know, I don't even have to do that. I could have just selected it, but the old method was you always had to say I'm going to define it. Click on this for my sketching plane. Click Sketch and Sketch View. So the most important reference I need is this arc for the keyway. This one right here. And actually I need one more. I need the slot here in the arm. In other words, the keyway on the top in the arm portion. And I'm going to go over and select from the dashboard here the 3-point, the center end arc. Now what I want to be a little bit careful, I don't want to accidentally hit something that I don't want, like right in here on the top. So I'm going to just go down here a little bit. As soon as I go over here, you'll see the alignment constraints pop up. Right mouse button, line chain. I'm going to take that, go up to my other reference, over until it's aligned with it. Like so. Now, maybe I'll put a construction center line in. I could have done that in the very beginning. All right, we're only showing one dimension. And right mouse button, well, click your dimension option. So let's give the dimension from here to here. And maybe we'll change it to, we'll leave it what it is. Is it okay? All right. Looks good. I'm going to go over to my standard orientation before I check. And I want it to go up to a surface. So up to selected. And I want it to go to the key seat. And I want it to go both directions, not symmetrical, obviously. It's just going to go to selected. On the other side, like so. So there's only one dimension on this whole key. All right, I'm going to activate the assembly. And I'm going to go and open up the key, because if you want to do a little bit of work, you might as well do it in the model. For instance, you definitely want to use a model color, not an assembly color. They are different. And maybe you want to round it. Let's do an auto round. How about 0.02? See if that works. There we go. So there's our little key, and it's got a lot of external references, except for the length and the round, of course. So let's close the window. You can see your component here. All right. Now we've got to do some checking on this. First of all, let's do a analysis and check for interferences. Okay, so we've got interferences in the housing and the shaft, the cover and the shaft, the housing top part in the shaft, quite a few. We've also got with the shaft and the hole in the arm, and of course the cover, like we said. So something's wrong somewhere. So let's go over to our diameter measurement and find out what the size of something is. And let's start with the shaft. Oh, it says 0.629921. Wow. No such thing, of course. So something's wrong. Let's just open up that part. And well, let's go to our information. No, that's not the command. The model. And it says the model's in millimeters. So obviously we created the assembly, and the default was which was inches. I'll just shut this off for now. So let's do a couple of things. Let's first of all go over and start with the subassembly. File, and let's go prepare, model properties, units, change, millimeters, set. Select the second one. You're going to hardly ever in your whole life use the first option, which means whatever you use these units, make them the same as the other. So in this case here, we're just going to do it that way. Close. Now we have to do it again because that was a subassembly. And here again, change our units, same thing. All right. I'm going to regenerate. And I think I'll go back over to the assembly. Oh, I've only got the assembly up. Oh, I must have closed the other one. That's okay. So this should be okay at this point. So let's go in and make an analysis, some measurement diameter. Let's start off with this. Okay, it's 16. That's fine. And let's go to the let's go to the cover here. I can pick on it. Maybe it'll be easier down here. Here's the hole. This is 14. And I suspect if we went and we measured all of these, they'd come back as 14. So the shaft is too big. So we need to fix it. Another thing you'll notice is that when I regenerated, the arm went way down here. If I double click on this, there's a little dimension, 0.34, that's 0.34 millimeters now. So let's just go to 25 and see what happens. And regenerate it. Oh, way too much. How about 5? Regenerate. Not too bad. I think we need a little bit more. So let's try 10. Again, that's quite a bit. Let's go into our front view here. And now you see where it's positioned. Now, there normally would be another washer or something here, and you can design one and put it in if you wish. You have to make the key a little bit smaller. And you notice we're going from here to here. It's being set up all the way to the bottom there when I put it on. So it's not being referenced from the top of the plate. Close. I'm going to leave it where it is. All right, so now let's do analysis. We're still getting an interference. Oh, I know why. I'm sorry. I just measured. I didn't change anything. What I want to do is I want to open up this part and see what's going on because I want to change this part diameter. Now, if I was over here and I say, well, I just want to change the diameter, no big deal. So I can activate the part, I can double click on it, and I can just change the dimension, right? Well, the problem is, look at those weird dimensions. There's no dimensions for the diameters, and there's a radius dimension for this portion. Which tells you what? That the person didn't know what they were doing, right? Let's go back over to the shaft, and let's look at the feature. That's the first feature. Edit the definition of it. Edit the internal sketch. Oh my gosh, look at this. So the person obviously doesn't know pretty much anything. All right, we need diameters. We've got L1 equals L1, which they aren't. Let's delete that first. L1, that's not right. Let's delete that. Now we got some dimensions at least. Axis of revolution is what's going down the middle here. And as soon as I did that, it did give me a diameter dimension here and a diameter dimension here. I do need to get rid of this though. And nice, it actually never did this before, but with Creo, it actually changed it into a diameter. So I need those diameters. I'm not saying all these dimensions are perfect. Here we do know this one is going to be 14. And I would not have stacked these dimensions like they did from here to here to here. But we'll leave it. We won't get too fancy with it. The main thing is we got our diameter correct for a change. Middle mouse button. I should be able to close that. Regenerate. And now let's look at the analysis of it. Got one more thing to change, that housing there. And let's see what's wrong with it. So there's the hole, 25. And getting to my choice that I wish. And 25.5. So we want to change one or the other. If we activate the, by the way, if you have trouble seeing things, you can turn them off by hiding the components. For instance, let's hide these two components. You can see it easier now. If you want to hide another component, it's not the same as suppressing. That actually unregenerates something. You can always bring them back. Let's hide this one. All right. So now, if I activate, it looks like I'm going to activate the housing. And let's see what the size is, 25. Or about 25.5. Should have changed the other one, but I'll be lazy and leave it like this. So I'll bring them all back, unhide. And activate the assembly itself. Want to rotate it? Double click on, see if we can get it. Ooh. Let's click on the subassembly and select edit. And let's turn this to how about 200 and regenerate. And it turns it. Standard orientation, make sure you save your model. Now, one thing we did wrong is we created this key in the assembly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just delete it, and then I'm going to open up the subassembly and insert it back in. So I'm going to use the traditional method of just assemble. So I'm going to click a face here, face for the key seat. And I don't want that to be an angle. I want that to be coincident. And then I'm going to click on the arc. And the arc for the key seat. All right. It's coincident. It's rotated. I need one more. So, new constraint. I'm going to pick the flat of the key and the flat of the arm. And I want to change that to be just parallel. Oh. Let's flip it and see what happens. There we go. And again, I know you wouldn't create a key like this, but it's giving you some top-down design experience. In the next lesson, the pulley project, you will be doing most of the work top-down design. Let's go back over. All right, this concludes the valve project. Make sure you save it.